Welcome to the Sports Report podcast with Ben, Ricky, and Jalen. We cover trending and popular topics surrounding the world of professional and on-campus sports. With each of us having a unique sports background, we give different perspectives and insight on the current climate of sports news. And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to the Sports Report pod. Class is in session. I'm Ben. I'm here with Jalen and Ricky. And we've been gone for about a month, so a lot has gone down in the NFL and NBA. We're going to kick it off with the NFL. We have the AFC and NFC championship games this weekend. We have the Lions and 49ers and the Ravens and Chiefs. So let's start with the NFC. Jalen, what do you think about the Lions and 49ers matchup?
I think that particular game is very intriguing. Two fan bases who love their team so much. And the Niners being at home really, I think, is going to give them a big advantage. Goff outdoors has not been the greatest quarterback compared to when he's at home indoors in front of that Detroit crowd. The Lions' run defense is really bad. But on the conversely, the Niners give up a lot of rush yards. But the difference is I think that pass defense for the Niners is just so much superior than the Lions' pass defense. That's a game where I could see it being close and the Niners pull away at the end. This is easily the Lions' toughest matchup. Obviously, when you get to the NFC Championship, it's going to be hard. But I'll lean the Niners. But the fact that can we just talk about the fact the Lions are here in the first place? Dan Campbell has done such a good job with that team. And everyone made fun of him. Everyone made fun of him when he did that little press conference and the whole "we're gonna bite your kneecaps off" thing. But that really is that whole team's identity, and it's so fun as an NFL fan, as a non-Lions fan, to watch that. So, I bet the city of Detroit is ecstatic, and I think it's gonna be a great game.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dan Campbell too. He's a very good coach. Last year they had to beat I think they had to beat the Packers, your Packers, so the Seahawks could get in. And I've been liking him ever since, I'm not going to lie. But, yeah, it's going to be a very good game. Jared Goff's been playing out of his mind. And Brock Purdy's been playing good, too. Both of them been having pivotal drives in the last couple of games because they've been so close. But I want to see Jared Goff against the pass defense. As you talked about before, the 49ers pass defense is insane. But the Lions running game is crazy with the two-headed snake of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. We're gonna see. It's gonna be a very good game, and I think it's gonna be tight. But I do have the 49ers, just off the fact that I feel like they're more of a complete team, and I think it's gonna come down to like the last couple drives where, it's defense first. So yeah, I have the 49ers winning, but I'm liking the Lions, and I'm liking where they're heading. I'm really proud of them, or not proud of them, but I like that they're in the playoffs and getting a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so as a Packers fan, I've seen both teams this year. And the 49ers weren't perfect, but when it mattered, they stepped up. The last few minutes of the game, they showed that they've been in the playoffs before. They know what it takes to win. The Lions, this is like all new for them. They've been great the first two games of the playoffs, but 49ers have so much talent and their coaching is really great. They've been to a Super Bowl with Shanahan. So I think the 49ers win, but I think it's going to be really close.
And you just feel like this is kind of the Niners get over that hump year. In the past, they've dealt with so many different things. The Tart interception, missed interception at the end of that game against the Rams, the Purdy injury, and with all the talks of Shanahan not being a playoff caliber guy, you just kind of feel like, okay, what more can happen for this team not to make it to the Super Bowl? Because they're so talented every single year, and it almost feels like this is the year they've separated just in terms of the sheer amount of, like I said, talent that they have everywhere, not just the D-line or the O-line. It's both. The secondary and the receivers, it's both. The quarterback play, coaching. I just feel like they're going to break through. And,
Yeah, I think the Packers should have won the game. But we're just going to go into that a little bit. But it shows, like, the Packers, the youngest team in the playoffs by far.
Right.
And it came down to those big plays at the end of the game, and our rookie kicker missed a field goal. Jordan Love, it's his first year starting. He threw a stupid interception. So, and they had like that one drive. It was like really far down the field, and McCaffrey punched it in at the end to give them the lead. Those are the things, like when it mattered, the stars showed up. Ayuk had a big catch on that drive. Purdy was making great throws, and then McCaffrey finished it off. So their playmakers are going to win the game, and Debo is trending towards playing now. So that's going to be big for them too.
That's good.
So moving on to the AFC game, we have the Ravens, who are the 1 seed and have looked really, really good. And then we have the Chiefs, who are always in the championship game with Patrick Mahomes. So we'll start with Ricky this time. What do you think about this game?
Well, I want the Ravens to win, and I really hope they win, but you can't put your money against Mahomes. I mean, the last 3 games they played, he's 3-1 against Lamar, and he's played above average of his regular games. Lamar, I think this is his year, though. I mean, he got paid. That whole controversy before the season on, what's going to happen. Is he going to get his money? Is he not? Is he staying? Is he leaving? I think this is his opportunity this year, especially with the defense playing so good. He has probably the best defense that he's had since he's been a Raven. But you just go back to the Chiefs. I mean, I don't know how you could beat Mahomes and Taylor Swift. I just don't know, especially in the AFC Championship. Like, it's gonna be a tough challenge for sure. But I do have the Chiefs winning. I just can't put my money against them. But it should be. I hope it's a tight game.
Yeah, to that point on Lamar, before the season, he was a free agent, and teams were passing on, like, going after him.
Yeah.
Like, remember the Falcons were linked to him, and they didn't want to go after him. So Baltimore eventually gave in and paid him, and this is kind of his year to prove it. But, yeah, it's hard to bet against Mahomes. Like, even when they have a horrible, like, offense. Like, this year, their offense was way worse than it's been. Their defense is kind of carrying the way. Kelsey's taken a step back, and they don't have a good group of receivers. Rashee Rice has been good, but MVS is hit and miss. Kadarius Toney's a big drop-off from the Super Bowl last year.
Too many
So
drops.
I think it'll be a good game. I think America is rooting for the Ravens, unless you're a Chiefs fan.
Same exact boat as both you guys. I would love to see a Lamar Jackson Super Bowl. I think, to go off on a Lamar Jackson tangent, he has done nothing but the right thing ever since coming into the league. He carries himself with such character. He talks about Baltimore so highly. They love him there. And I honestly feel like he's a little overhated. I don't know why people think he's not that good. Obviously not before this season. He's going to win MVP. And
Second
MVP. It'll be a great storyline if he takes home the MVP and the Super Bowl in the same year. One of the only QBs to do that.
Super Bowl MVP probably.
Yeah. If he gets him there, that'll probably be the most likely thing. But Mahomes, 9-2-1 against the spread, 8-4 straight up as an underdog, is just unbelievable. He's slowly solidifying himself as like the underdog QB. Like, if he's a dog, you just blindly take him. That game against the Bills, I think, just showed that the playoffs are a completely different atmosphere than the regular season. You can look however bad you want to look in the regular season. Once you get to a one-game elimination environment, it all goes out the window. And Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they know how to win, like you said, Ben. And that group has just been together for so long, and the culture's so good that you can't assess a team based off of how they looked over a 17-game stretch when the track record of the Chiefs is, already there. And I think people are starting to see that now. Like we saw with Baker Mayfield, you can go 9-8, you can go 8-9 even, and get to the playoffs. You can win a game if you just, match up well against one team.
And the Packers.
And the Packers did the same thing. That's why we love sports. Like, the playoffs, it's just, you cannot count anyone out. And that was a tangent. But to go back to the game, I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think that, similar to what I said with the Niners, how you just feel like this is their year to break out, I just feel like the Chiefs have gotten a lot of things. The ball has bounced in the right way for them a lot this season. And that Ravens defense, what I'm looking at is, Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to do what they're going to do on the offensive side. If I'm just comparing the Ravens defense and the Chiefs defense, with the Ravens defense being at home, I'm going to take that defense. That's just been so good all year. It's going to be really close, and it's going to be a great game.
I think it's going to come down to the turnover battle because Lamar at times has games where he'll fumble a couple times or throw a couple picks. Mahomes in the playoffs is usually very on point, so
Perfect.
it'll come down to that. Lamar's been great this postseason, but in years prior he's had games where he's had multiple turnovers, so that's going to be a huge determining factor. And to go off on Lamar a little bit, why is he not considered the second best quarterback in the league? Like Josh Allen's always brought up right after Mahomes.
Right.
It's Lamar.
And I think we were doing a lot of top 10 quarterback reshuffling, especially this year. And everybody was disrespecting Lamar Jackson. No question, like you said now. People are going to be like, okay, we've got our top 2 solidified. But the fact that he even had to have this season to go prove that is just a testament to him and the Ravens and how the sports world views him. Even us, like, we weren't talking about them that much,
Yeah.
in previous episodes of this. And that's on us. Like, we got to give this guy his flowers. He's so good.
Yeah, and Josh Allen, he's never won an MVP, so I don't know why we held him in such high regard over
Yeah, he's
Lamar.
got that cannon
It's
of
just
an
perception.
arm.
Yeah, like
he runs people over.
It's the
you see him
media
throw
coverage of
100%.
it.
You see him throw 100 yards or throw a ball outside the arena or try to do something crazy. That's what people like to see. I think Lamar is so, what's the word I'm looking for? Unorthodox, to where we seen it with Michael Vick a little bit, but he formed it into more of a winning pattern. I would say, like, more successful winning pattern. He's always been the underdog ever since he came in the draft. They were trying to put him at wide receiver, and he has the MVP. And years later, we're still like, pretty much, he's still the underdog. Like, we're still saying all this about him. It's crazy. It's crazy to me as well. Like, I do believe he's definitely up there with Mahomes. Yeah.
Just before we move on real quick, I don't know if you guys have already looked at it, but I want to play a little game. I want you guys to guess the spreads of the 2 games. So the Ravens versus the Chiefs with the Ravens at home, and the Niners versus the Lions with the Niners at home. So we'll start with Ben.
Okay, I'll say
For the Ravens game, and we'll go game by game.
I'll say the Ravens are favored by 1.5.
How about you, Ricky?
Okay, you got to help me on the spread because I'm not too familiar with the
Gotcha.
spread.
So, yeah, the minus and the plus just denotes who's favorite. But just for this, just tell me who you think is favorite and by how many points. So like Ben said, Ravens minus, what did you say, 1.5?
Yeah.
So that would be like, if the Ravens win by 2, they cover.
Okay.
If the Ravens win by 1 or lose, they don't cover.
I think I have the Ravens favored by, I'm gonna say 2. I'm gonna say 2.
So we got 1.5 and 2. The Ravens are 4-point favorites.
Wow.
That's,
Against the Chiefs,
I don't know.
which is a lot.
I think that's too big.
I think that's adjustment for, like, it's a buy. It's a sell high spot for the Chiefs for a lot of bettors. The Ravens are at home, so they're obviously going to be favorite. But that is a lot of points for more than 3 is crazy.
Yeah.
Like 2.5, you'd understand 1 score. You know what I'm saying? If they're going to win, they're going to win by 3.
I
but
presume
having more than 3 is pretty high. What about the Niners?
Well, given that, if they're going that high with that, I'm saying 7.5 for the 49ers favored.
I'm going lower. I think it's a little bit more tight. I would say, well, not too tight. I would say like 49ers under 5.
Yeah, so Ben was very close. Niners are minus 7. But yeah, 7.5, 7. That's about right, I think.
I think just because of the experience level,
And they're at home.
That's huge.
That is true.
And Goff in the playoffs, he's been good in the first couple games, but historically,
well, he did go to a Super Bowl though.
He did, but he lost him that Super Bowl by only putting up 3 points.
Did not get in the end zone.
That is true.
It was really the defense that got him. The defense and Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
So, okay, but now we'll move on to the coaching changes. There's been a lot in the NFL so far. The Seahawks and Commanders are the only 2 that have not filled their new head coaching spot. We have the Falcons getting Raheem Morris, the Panthers getting Dave Canales, Chargers Jim Harbaugh, Titans Brian Callahan, Raiders Antonio Pierce, and Patriots Gerard Mayo. What has been the coaching hire that stood out to you most? We'll start with Jalen.
As a Raider fan, I am so happy that we locked up Antonio Pierce amongst all the coaching and front office debacles that the Raiders have had to endure the past couple years. I'm happy that we got our guy internally. I think the Gruden thing, the Del Rio thing, the McDaniel thing. It's good that we got a guy who loves this team as much as the players who are playing for him. I mean, we talked about a little bit this off air, Ben, but Max Crosby openly saying that he was going to pursue a trade if they didn't lock up Antonio Pierce. So I think that's a microcosm of Raider fans saying, hey, look, we're frustrated with all this change. We just want to figure it out if we're going to struggle, I want to be able to figure it out with this group of guys that we love and love playing for, the silver and black. And Antonio Pierce, after he stepped in as interim, they were the number one defense in terms of points allowed per game. And it showed. Yeah, the quarterbacks that they played in the back half of the season were definitely worse than the quarterbacks they were playing in the front half. But that Chiefs game at Arrowhead was the Raiders' Super Bowl. That was the game for Antonio Pierce to keep his job and for maybe even Devontae Adams, to stay in Las Vegas for the next couple of years. So, but besides that, with me having a little Raider bias, I think similarly the Gerard Mayo hiring for the Patriots is great for them since they did it internally. Again, we talked about this a little bit, but he was kind of being groomed into being their guy after Belichick left. And I think more teams are kind of catching on to, paying $100 million for this coach with a name is not particularly going to help you win the most games and get the farthest in the playoffs. Internal is everything, and culture is everything, especially. And those were the two signings that I think stood out for me.
Yeah, I also really like the Raiders getting Antonio Pierce. He's like the face of the Raiders. I'm not a big Raiders fan, but if I see the Raiders and I see the coach, I'll be like, okay, he looks like the coach for the Raiders, My team still doesn't have a head coach yet, so I'm kind of worried a little bit and concerned because a lot of the coaches that I've seen that are being picked up, I liked, Dave Canales. He's going to be very good, and I feel like Bryce Young is going to have a very good season this year coming up. Dave Canales was the quarterback coach for Seattle last year, and I think he's a big reason why Geno did so well. And he was the offense coordinator for the Bucs this year, and we seen what Baker did in the playoffs. So he's a very good coach to be watching for next year. The Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers, I feel like is good. He has relationships with that. He played for them before.
High, natty championship.
Yep, and they have the pieces. I feel like they have the pieces. It's just a matter of putting it together and figuring it out. But yeah, other than that, come on Seahawks, we gotta lock in. I don't know what's going on.
And the market was so big for a head coach this year. To be the last team to hire is brutal.
Yeah, because the Commanders haven't officially hired, but Ben Johnson, the Lions' offensive coordinator, is most likely going there once the Lions season is over. So it's a thin pool. Well, I can't really say it's a thin pool because Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick are still out there, but
we're not gonna get. I don't want to get Bill Belichick. I mean, he's a great coach. He's one of the best coaches of all time, but I feel like him in the position like at Seattle, I don't think it's gonna.
I think it's lateral with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, it's
I
like
would 100% agree.
We're getting another older coach that's it's gonna be kind of it's just not gonna be efficient. But Mike Vrabel, I mean, I don't know. We talked about it before getting on the podcast. I'm 50-50 about that, but he did have success with A.J. Brown and Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, he's a good coach, but he's a defensive guy first.
He is a defensive guy, and we do need a focus on defense, but I feel like our offense is just Seattle. We just have problems, Seattle. We have problems right now. We need to get.
That's how we got our playoff spot. Your guys' problems.
It's bad, but hopefully we could find somebody and figure this thing out.
Yeah. So to me, I like all the coaching hires honestly so far. But Harbaugh is what stood out to me most. Getting him from Michigan after they won the national championship. It's finally a coach I can have confidence in developing Herbert.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He's been a great quarterback, but he hasn't really had like the team around him or the coaching to where he can be in that level of Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen. He's kind of been that second tier of quarterbacks. So I think he's going to have a breakout year. They have a lot of issues with cap space, and they need to work on their defense a lot. and maybe they need another receiver because Quentin Johnson isn't working out, and Keenan Allen or Mike Williams are always hurt. So they have a lot to work on, but they finally have a coach I'm confident in.
How many times have we put the Chargers in second, maybe even first in that AFC West division, just expecting them to overtake, for Herbert to lead that team to overtake the little Chargers stigma, and it just never happens. I mean, I think back to that last game of the year in Allegiant Stadium, took a timeout right at the end of the game and allowed the Raiders to kick a field goal instead of tying the game and both getting in. You lose the game and don't even get in. All you had to do was not lose.
They just can't finish games. They could put up all the points in the world, but if the other team's putting up points and you're making dumb decisions, then you're not gonna win. You're not gonna finish the game.
Yeah, Brandon Staley's tenure. His first year was that year where he called timeout, which lost him their playoff spot. The next year, they make the playoffs. They played Jacksonville.
Oh my goodness!
They're up 27-0 at, I think it was at halftime.
I was watching that game. I watched the full game.
Yeah, they were up 27-0 at some point. I don't know if it was that score at halftime, but they blew the game and lost.
Yeah,
insanity.
So your coaching is clearly not well. So it's good they fired him. Now they have a coach who has experience and success in the NFL and in college. So I think it's going to be really helpful for them, but they still have a lot of issues to address in the offseason. All right, now we're going to kick it over to the NBA. So we just had the All-Star starters announced for each conference. We have in the East, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, Giannis, who is the captain, and Joel Embiid. In the West, we have Shea, Luka, LeBron, who's the captain, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic. So are there any snubs from the starting lineup that you guys have? Jalen, we'll start with you.
Right off the top of my head, the West looks great. I think all 5 of these guys are having career years. Jokic doing what he's doing, Shea really blossoming into his own, Luka and Durant steadying the course, and LeBron proving that age is just a number and he is a robot. I mean, that guy's getting better. How is he getting better? Shouldn't be possible. In the East, I love that Halliburton got his flowers. You can't deny a guy who's averaging almost, I mean, is he still at 50, 40, 90? He's probably, if not, he's close. And he's averaging more than 12 assists with 27-plus points a game. I see Lillard on here, and I know the Bucks had that stint where it was very, very hard for them to score points. It was very hard for them to win games. Giannis was frustrated. What do you guys think? Do you guys think there's a guard who is better than Damian Lillard?
Jalen Brunson.
Jalen Brunson.
Yeah,
I love Jalen Brunson.
We talked about it before the podcast. Jalen Brunson's probably the only person I see that could replace Lillard. It has been hard for the Bucks. He's had good games. Lillard, he's had good games, but Jalen Brunson's definitely been way more consistent.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, like, both of them have been, like, overall their numbers are probably very similar, but Brunson is the number 1 on their team, and they've been really good this year. And Lillard has struggled a little bit for his standards, and he's the number 2 on his team now behind Giannis. So.
Yeah, hit that game winner against Sacramento.
Yeah, he's been great. He definitely deserves to be an all-star. I think I would just start Brunson over Lillard. So I think that's all the change we would have. I think the rest of it looks pretty good.
I mean, the West is crazy. Shea's averaging 30, Luka's averaging 30, LeBron's LeBron, Durant's been on a heater recently, and Jokic. It's like, the West is so tight.
You guys remember when Jalen Brunson first got paid after that postseason run he had with Dallas, and everyone was just like $20 million for a backup shooting guard who can't shoot threes, and now he's leading that team to, the expectation for them is a deep run in the East. And one thing I love about his game is that he's so small, but he's so strong. He's back to the basket guy as a point guard, and that's something we don't see very much with all the shots coming, behind the break and in the paint. Especially in the playoffs, I think when every team can defend and every team has athletes and every team is closing out so hard on the three-point line, he can pump fake one dribble, 18 feet out. He's automatic, and it's so pretty to watch. He's kind of bringing that mid-range meta back to the NBA and showing that, hey, you can average 30 points and not shoot 10, 15 threes a game like, these other stars are doing. But yeah. I love Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, and to that point, Brunson is so strong, and he also has great footwork. So when he's in the paint, he could either fade away for a mid-range or he could get that layup depending on what the defense
Something
does.
about that lefty shot is so pretty.
It's different. He knows how to attack. He knows his spots. He's great. He's great.
So that's probably our only snub for this list. Let's move into the high NBA scoring recently. We talked a little bit off air. And Ricky, you were talking about how Embiid, Kat, and Booker have been performing. So you want to go into that?
Yeah, it's been crazy the last couple weeks.
Crazy.
Yeah, with Joel having 70 and Kat having 63 on the same night. And I think it was the same night Kobe had his 81.
Yes, it was.
I don't think it's just a coincidence. I feel like around this time, just normally in the NBA, is when like all the stars start getting their groove and start really like heating up. And especially like with the push, the MVP push, like Joel and Jokic and stuff, I feel like it's more yet to come. I feel like it's going to be another huge performance. And also, they're all efficient games. Like they're all shooting over 50%. Like it's you're scoring 70 points and shooting over 50%.
He's getting to the line
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, 20. I think he had 20. He was 21.
23 free throw attempts or something crazy.
Something like that. But they're all efficient games, and I feel like we're just seeing the NBA change right now. Just with all this scoring, coaches is doing a great job getting their stars the ball in the places they want to get them, which is good. And they're being very creative right now. So I'm liking it. I'm loving it right now. I love the scoring.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, that around this time of year is where everyone kind of finds their rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little over halfway through the season now, so everyone's kind of acclimated with their teams. And it's kind of where they start to make that push towards the All-Star break, and then after the All-Star break, sometimes there's a little regression. But definitely right now is like the peak we're going to get for scoring for the year. So I think Embiid's performance was against Wemby, but I don't think Wemby was guarding him a lot of the game. But still a great game for him. 70, I think he was the 9th player to score 70 in a game. And he was 21 for 23 from the free throw line.
He only made 1 3, right? He was like 1 for 2.
I think so.
That's unbelievable. I
That's-
didn't know that.
Yeah, I think bigs are really back in the NBA. Like that was like the last 5 years, teams were going to like small ball. And now we have Embiid, Jokic, Anthony Davis. We have Chet and Wemby coming up. So it's exciting. Sabonis in Sacramento's playing really well.
He's on the heater.
Leading the league in rebounds. He's so physical.
He's close to a triple-double average.
Goodness gracious,
Yeah.
he's so good.
So I think it's just kind of shifting. We have talent at every position now. Like before, there, like in the early 2000s and like 2010s, it was guards that were kind of getting phased out, and then Steph came along and changed the game from 3, and now that's really important. But wings and forwards have just been consistently really big with like LeBron, Tatum, KD, and then now the bigs are coming back. So it's just an exciting time for basketball. We have so much talent at each position. Now we can move into the NBA trades and trade rumors. So we've had a few trades go down since our last pod. We had Terry Rozier going to the Heat, Pascal Siakam going to the Pacers, OG Anunoby going to the Knicks, and Marvin Bagley going to the Wizards. That's more of a smaller one. But what trade has stood out to you most? We'll start with Ricky.
I like the Rozier trade for sure. I think that's an upgrade for the Heat. I really don't want to get like talking about Charlotte because I don't think they're making playoffs or anything.
They just wanted to pick.
Yeah, Kyle Lowry, he's gonna be good for like LaMelo, and I think he's a good culture boost for the team, or he's gonna change the culture, especially with a lot of stuff that's been happening in Charlotte, like with all the stuff's been going on with players. But he's good, I guess, for them. But yeah, the Rozier's upgrade, Pascal trade really stood out. I'll let you guys talk about that one. But the OG Anunoby trade, that was a good trade. As for the Knicks, their defense is been way better. It kind of helps them, I guess, fluctuate the ball more, or it kind of gives. When they had R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, it was more of they're trying to look to score more, and now they have OG Anunoby. He's not really a big scorer, but he's going to get you the rebounds. He's going to get you the 15, 17 points he averages, as well as great defense. So I think that was a very underrated trade for the Knicks.
Yeah, speaking on that a little bit, OG is a great fit over there. Thibodeau loves defensive players. and he fits his system really well, and he could still be like a third or fourth option as a scorer. And RJ Barrett and Quickly, like you said, are scorers, and Quickly's contract was also up at the end of the year, and the Knicks and Quickly were very far off on an extension, so that's part of the reason they moved him. And Barrett's on a max contract, and he was not playing like a max player. So moving him for OG Anunoby, who fits that 3-and-D mold perfect next to Brunson and Randall, I think that was a great trade for them.
Yeah. Took the words right out of my mouth. Knicks needed more defense on the wings. They got it. They needed a guy who can guard a number 1 or number 2 option on the ball for 48 minutes or however long he's going to be in the game. They got it.
Thibodeau plays his starters 40 minutes.
And if it goes into overtime, he'll play it all. He'll play them all. 52-minute game, OG Anunoby, 52 minutes. No, but that's great stuff. But the Pascal trade, I think for me, really stood out. He's been in trade talks around this time of year for the past, it seems like
ever since Kawhi left, really.
Yes, since he was a piece for that Raptors team that went all the way. And for this to be the last year that the Raptors could move him, I think they got a really good return. The first-round picks they're going to get are not going to be lottery picks because Indiana looks like they're going to be in a place to contend. But the fact that they got first-round capital for a guy who is going to play half the season for whatever team they moved him for is really, really good. And on the other side of it, Indianapolis is not giving up that much for a guy who's going to come in and complement Tyrese Halliburton's style of play perfectly. Siakam can play vertical, he can play horizontal, he can play back to the basket, gives you good rim protection. And Indianapolis, they just got better. And him along with Miles Turner, and Halliburton has just been balling. So that's a team to look out for. I think, I can't remember, but the first episode we did our little rankings, I think all three of us had Indiana in the playoffs, if I remember correctly.
I'll look at my list.
And it looks like they're gonna.
Honestly, don't think I had.
Keep going. Maybe not Ricky.
I remember I spoke highly about Halliburton.
Yeah.
He's just a fun player to watch.
Goodness
He's
gracious.
such a good playmaker, and he's improved as a scorer over the years. His shooting's gotten better this year too. So it's just really exciting for Indiana. And Pascal, it sounds like they're going to be able to work out an extension with him in the offseason. If you don't, it kind of makes that trade questionable.
Right. Then it just depends on what you do in the playoffs. Even
Yeah.
You gotta.
And I don't think this is the win-it-all year for them.
Exactly.
I think they're still 1 or 2 years away from being in a contending spot, but they have a great core now. And they have young guys that are still coming up, like the Isaiah Jackson. They were able to hold on to him. And they just have a good young core over there that they're growing.
That Mathurin guy's pretty good too.
Matherin's
they
great.
have lots of young talent.
They were refusing to put him in any trade offers.
Good for them. I love when teams protect their young guys like that. It's too easy to just flip young guys for the star.
Yeah, and
So
then
it's cool
there was the guy they took with the 7th overall pick this year, I think, that they didn't trade. I'm just gonna look him up real quick, but they were able to keep their whole young core. Obi Toppin stayed there.
That was a good pickup for them.
Yeah, so they just really kept their whole team together. And Bruce Brown was an off-season signing, and he was solid. But if you're getting an all-star in Pascal Siakam, you don't care.
Yeah,
And that's another positive for the Raptors. They can flip Bruce Brown to another contender, probably for another first-round pick, if not a pretty good second or just more young talent.
And Jarris Walker was the player I was thinking of. They took him 8th overall in the draft. So they kept all their young guys together, really, and are still going to be really competitive. They traded 3 first-round picks that probably aren't going to be super valuable. So I think it was a great trade for them. And now I think they're going to be the second tier of the East. I think right now it's Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and then kind of have Miami, Indiana, New York in that next tier of they can win a series, but are they going to make it to the finals? Probably not.
Well, Miami's one of those teams.
You never know
where,
with
yeah,
Miami.
You never know because the last couple years they had a questionable record in the regular season and they just started beating teams in the playoffs. So
it's the coaching.
Yeah,
Spoelstra
definitely.
turns it up. I think he's the best coach in the league by far.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler's a playoff performer. So combine those two guys,
Those
you
two
never
are a
know.
perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's why the Rozier trade was so good because those playoff games where, I mean, you had Lowry last year, and now you have a player that could get you 30 on any given night. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I do think Caleb Martin and the rest of those dudes got to step up, though. They haven't really been playing as well as they should. But it's a good trade.
Are the 76ers a Tier 1 team in the East?
The way Embiid's playing right now, and Maxey too. I mean, maybe they're not at the same level. So I guess Tier 1, maybe not. Because Boston and Milwaukee are definitely separate.
Yeah. They're not in Tier 2, but they're right outside of the Tier 1 building.
Exactly.
They're knocking.
Yeah.
But no one's letting them in.
I think their trade deadline is going to be huge because they have so many contracts they can move. Marcus Morris is making a lot. Batum is making a lot. Tobias Harris, if they wanted to move him, is on like $38 million. So they could get another all-star at the deadline. They have picks because of the Harden trade. So it could be interesting if they get that next guy to put with Maxey and Embiid. They could jump up to Tier 1.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Boston. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow.
I'm not sold. They do this every year, and yeah, they have success. I feel like I was watching. They were playing Milwaukee. I forgot what day it was. I think it was
They got blown out by
and
Milwaukee.
they just got blown
in that
out
game,
immediately.
yeah.
And I was just looking. I'm like, yes, they're talented. They have all the talent in the world, but games like this, it just doesn't sit right with me. And they're gonna have to play these teams in the playoffs later. And how are they gonna respond if they're down by a certain amount, or if they're you have to fight adversity against these teams? I honestly think the Sixers can compete with Boston and Milwaukee on any given night. But
I'm actually the other way. I think that Boston got better than last year by adding Porzingis, by adding size.
And Drew Holiday.
Yes, they have their premier defender in Drew Holiday now. I think they're more complete than in prior years when, yes, they have done the dance of get to the conference finals and then just find a way to not win 4 games in the conference finals. But I really think that the eye test, I watched that game and it was really bad. But the same thing could be said, I think, for the Bucks. There's games when the Bucks play on national TV, and that game against Cleveland, they scored 2 points in the first 6 minutes, and we're down 28-2. They had to take 2 timeouts, and Cleveland went on to just blow them out that game. And I think the difference between 2 contending teams who are obviously going to have games like that is when it's close, when you're down by 10, how do you look coming back in the later half of the games? And Boston just, when they get into their groove, it's very, very hard to stop because you close out threes and they're just so big on the interior getting offensive rebounds, and their defense is so good. Drew Holiday is a huge part of that. Tatum has really, that guy is so good. He's coming into his own with his game. He can do it all. Jalen Brown and Porzingis have this crazy 2-man game that I did not expect at the beginning of this season. I think they're the most complete team in the East.
Jalen Brown posted today a picture with him and Porzingis, cookies and cream. So, they've had really great chemistry.
Yeah.
So, I think
Just random,
I agree with you.
Random as hell, too.
It really is, yeah. Adding 2 All-Stars on top of Tatum and Brown has really made them complete. Derek White is a phenomenal role player.
Derek White's playing.
He could be a star somewhere else, I
Goodness
think.
gracious. Talk about underrated. Not anymore. People,
everyone
he's
knows
good.
now, yeah. He's one of the best perimeter defenders. Him and Drew Holiday, that's the best defending backcourt.
So
in the league.
consistent from 3.
Yeah. So I think they're my favorite out east right now. In Milwaukee, too, we're going to get into this right now. I don't believe in them as much right now because they have changes going on.
Yeah.
They fired their coach only 42 games or 43 games into the season that they signed this offseason to a 4-year deal. So now they're going to be paying him, Mike Budenholzer, who they fired in the offseason, and Doc Rivers, who they're bringing in. So do we think the Doc Rivers coaching ad changes things? We'll start with Jalen.
No, because when in the history of any sport, not just the NBA, has a team hired a guy midway through the season, and that's the guy that takes them far in the playoffs?
I actually have an
Tyronn
answer.
Lue, right?
Tyronn Lue for the 2016 Cavs that came back down 3-1. They fired David Blatt midseason. They were the 1
was
seed.
that?
Tyronn Lue took
I remember he
over,
failed
and
me.
they won the championship.
It is a little different,
and
though.
it is different. That was internal.
Yeah, well, but David Blatt was there for 2 years before.
Yes,
as
that's
well.
true.
He's just new head coach, so
And there's another example I have too from the 80s.
Okay.
The Lakers fired Paul Westhead midseason for assistant coach at the time, Pat Riley.
Wow.
And Pat Riley obviously became one of the greatest coaches ever. But both of those were internal. They were on the staffs.
Interesting.
So Doc Rivers, I guess, kind of was because he was a consultant.
Yep.
But he wasn't there the whole year. He wasn't like actually physically with the team. So I think it's different. But those are examples
thank
to
you.
refute that one point.
Very good. Now I can play it off as my question not being rhetorical. But anyway, just looking at it like, okay, we're going to bring this guy in with 39 games left, and he's going to fix all the things that could not be fixed with the guy that we just fired. I don't know that computes, you know what I mean? Just looking at it as a sports fan from an objective, like, I don't care who the team or the mascot with the jersey that is on the team playing. That situation is very, very hard. And thank you for those two examples because I didn't know that. And Tyronn Lue had the LeBron James guy, but
and Pat Riley had Magic and Kareem.
yeah.
So.
I mean, we got Giannis and Lillard. Maybe this is the time they cement themselves with those names that you just said, but I don't buy it. I think it's like we said, there's talent at every position. Every team has talent. It's so wide open that you need everything to go right for you in the playoffs. And if one thing goes wrong, you're out. And it's going to take a lot for everything to go right for the Bucks. And for a team like Denver, a team like Boston, it's not going to take that much for everything to go right for them. They have more ways to win. And you know, that says it all. I think I'm all in on those teams that kind of have hammered out all the things that have to hammer it out already. And it's gonna be tough. I think it'll be tough for Milwaukee.
Yeah, if you're like looking looking at the NBA a little bit, you know, in the beginning of the season, you kind of seen a little bit of the dysfunction. I think, you know, it was a lot on the news, and a lot of people were talking about, you know, the dynamic between Giannis and Adrian Griffin, and is this gonna work? When he did get fired, I was surprised because they had one of the best records in the NBA, and I thought the dysfunction wasn't that much to where you got to fire him mid-season, especially because he's a new coach. Doc's a great coach, but as Jalen said, I mean, what problems are you really gonna resolve hiring Doc? I mean, maybe it was something that, like, super internal to where we just don't know, and it might, like, I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I feel like they still have a chance to win a championship just because they have Giannis and Dame. I mean, you can't really say that it's just over, but they had to do what they had to do. I guess it had to be something to the extent to where they just couldn't keep them on. It was confusing to me the first thing I got.
And I want to go back on my statement and kind of re-clarify, because that's 100% I agree with you in the sense that the Bucks still have the same exact team as they had with this other coach. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that the hiring of Doc Rivers automatically is going to rule them out, but I don't think that the hiring of Doc Rivers is going to put them above what they already were, is all I was trying to reiterate. But I'm not saying that because this happened, now they're destined to, you know, not make a deep run. They still are, I mean, a top 4, if not top 3 talent-wise in the whole league. So,
yeah, I think part of this was, it sounds like he lost the locker room. From what I've seen on reports, it sounds like he was very authoritative in the locker room. Like Bobby Portis called a players only meeting maybe 10, 20 games into the season. And it just seemed like he didn't really get the locker room behind him. So you have a championship caliber team. If you're not getting the right coach in place, then yeah, fire him mid-season. Now, is Doc Rivers going to fix all the problems you have in your roster? No, you still need to go be active at the trade deadline. So to your point, they still have a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. But Doc Rivers is a guy that players around the league really respect for years and years. So he's going to get the most out of Giannis and Dame. Now, in the playoffs, he has struggled. He won the title with the Celtics in 2008. Since then, his playoff history has not been great at all. So that's something to be a little concerned about. But Adrian Griffin would have been no experience as a head coach going into the playoffs. So, Doc, you're definitely getting more experience. You're getting a guy that the players will respect, but they still have a lot of work to do overall to become in that same team. Like, they're one of the best teams in the league, but Boston and Denver like way more complete, to your point.
I mean, what do you guys think it was? Because if you have one of the best records in the NBA, like, yeah, I do understand he could have lost the locker room, but like, what do you guys truly think the reason why they let him go? Especially like, because if that was the case, they should have just hired Doc like the beginning of the season, you know?
From what I've seen, Giannis liked the hire at the time. And it sounds like maybe just throughout the year they kind of lost respect for him. I saw Giannis was drawing up plays on the clipboard in Adrian Griffin's last game as the head coach. So maybe it's just a philosophy thing. Because if your best player is like
That's
drawing up the play
crazy.
on a
That's
clipboard,
insane.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't really know.
That's weird.
It's
That
not
is-
like
that's-
they're not
that-
going to
no,
say
that's weird. Like,
they're not going to say like this is why we fired him.
Yeah.
Even though we're a good team.
Was he on the staff last year? Or
No,
was
I
he
believe
just-
he was the top assistant in Toronto with Nick Nurse, I believe, at the time.
Yeah, it's a strange situation.
It's a very strange situation, and it's not going to fix everything for them, but
I'm pretty sure more will come out soon. I'm pretty sure.
we'll definitely get more. But yeah, I think that is good for this episode. Next episode, we'll talk a little bit. We kind of missed it. Josh Giddey, he got his case dropped. And we'll talk about Lakers trade rumors because you'll see every player on every other team across the league linked to them. So
yeah.
it's fun for me. I
DeJounte
get
Murray's
to,
gonna go to 10 different teams.
Zach Levine.
we're out on him actually.
Oh, no more Zach Levine.
It's just DeJounte is like the main guy, but we have like 20 other guys we're linked to. So we'll talk about that next time. And until then, class dismissed.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Report podcast. Be sure to check out our Instagram at the Sports Report Pod for more content and to never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.
Score!